Thanks, Lockie, for the introduction. So, Michael Vorassi, 2016 Nuffield Scholar. Today I'll be looking at opportunities for value-added vegetable production. Oops. So, first of all, I'd like to thank Nuffield Australia and Horticulture Innovation for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Beyond this report and findings, this scholarship is setting up leaders for the future. So, it's a far-reaching return on investment. I'd like to also thank my staff. Before leaving for Nuffield, we had 25 employees. We currently have close to about 60. So during that time, we went through rapid growth, and we really saw some key people step up, and now they've moved into some more leadership type roles. I'd like to thank my parents, in particular my father, who's pictured in the bottom left-hand corner with my two boys and nephew. My dad taught me what it is to persevere and be passionate, and he really drives me to be passionate about this industry. Finally, I'd like to thank my wife, which unfortunately couldn't make it today, but she's been a huge supporter. There's no way I would have been able to do it without her, and Lisa, I love you. So a little bit about myself. So growing up, I never wanted to really become a vegetable grower. That's why I'm standing here today. So I saw my parents struggle. One year they'll have a good year, one year they'll have a bad year, and I thought this isn't really much of a lifestyle that I really wanted. So I went away and did a business marketing degree. During that time, I began to see some opportunities to transform this farm into a real business. So I went away, did a bit of consulting, and then moved into the business, set up a processing facility, and the rest is history. So what drives our passion? So one thing that I'm really passionate about is increasing vegetable consumption. It's something I live by, and it's something I promote heavily. Our role at DSA Fresh, we believe, is to facilitate the increase of vegetables consumption. And it's partly why I've studied the topic that I have. So my Nuffield journey. So I won't rattle through the list, but it took me to 11 different countries, which I saw, different value adding beyond just vegetables. Also looked at some other industries. China was a highlight, looking at some rice wine, where they showed me how to effectively tell a story and how that can add value to the product. So that was very interesting. Okay, so my topic, value-added vegetable productions. In this, I'll look for opportunities to increase growers' returns, customer insights, and trends in the market. So, can anyone tell me what this is? No, it's not a tree. It's a broccoli. So, let's look at this. So, if we look at the broccoli, currently, it's got a retail value of $3.20 per kilo. It's got a variable price, so it could go up and down, so it makes it quite difficult to budget and run projections on. Let's look at this same product in terms of value added and what it could be. So here we've got a couple of examples of what it could be. As you can see, there's close to about a 300% increase of return from a retail perspective. Return for that same product that's been value added. So we look at broccoli rice, which is using the stalk of the broccoli, which is normally thrown to waste. They're achieving $10 a kilo. You look at brock slaw and broccoli florets as well, where you can use second grade produce to develop a product and still get a greater return of volume. So if your farm is growing 2,000 acres of 2,000 kilos of broccoli, you can substantially increase your returns by looking at value added as an option. While it's got a lot of complexities, it adds a lot of processes, people to the process, the returns are there. You can also market your product, being it's a value added product, and there's a lot of advantages that I'll talk about through this presentation. So I want to look at the power of produce. So sales are only generated if your customers are interested in buying your product. So when I was in Singapore, I was lucky enough to go to Tesco's and do a few site visits. While there, they showed me why they were changing the position of their vegetables within their stores and making it at the front of their stores. The reason being is that a quarter of customers switch shopping outlets when purchasing produce. So they want people to walk into their store, see vegetables as a capturing point, and use that as an opportunity to keep them there. They're also purchasing vegetables 3 times a week. So once again, it increases repeat penetration of other products that they can leverage from. So produce is an exciting industry and it's well positioned to grow. So some customer habits at the moment. So we've only got about 6% of Australians eating their recommended fruit and veg intake. Of those surveyed, another 39% say that they're trying to increase this. So what's the problem? What's the gap? So there's definitely a gap because our range currently isn't satisfying the needs of the customers and isn't reaching their expectations unless we would be at that 39%. So when it comes to products, we must put customers at the centre. So below is an example of illustration of open innovation. So open innovation is a term that was widely used in the States, where they talk about engaging your customer, your retailer, your hospitality groups to develop a product rather than just develop a product and hope to sell it. So Staples Produce was one of the facilities that I went to, and they were doing a broccoli and collie pack, which was all packaged together. While they're getting decent sales for this product, they use this open innovation concept and went back to the retailers and customers and found that if they separate the broccoli and collie in a pack, there should be potential increase in sales. They took this on board, spent about $800 million on a new processing facility, and he stated that this was extremely successful and the penetration went up substantially. He wouldn't tell me the actual figures, but he said it was a success. So one of the things that we've got to consider as growers and value adders is that we must move away from the mentality of growing a product in hope of a sale, rather focus on the customer's needs and expectations. So what are some of the new trends that I found? So there was an array of different trends that I found, but some of the exciting ones that I looked into was salad bowls. So when you go to your retail stores now, you'll be pretty familiar with the retail bags. Bowls are slowly getting introduced, but in America in the last 3 years, there's been a 15% year-on-year increase in sales of these products, while salad bags have become neutral, if not declining in some areas. Now, they believe the reason for this is because they're becoming more focused on the customer. They're able to tailor a product based on customers' needs and expectations, doing different sauces, different mixes, and becoming really focused on the demographic of the customer. Tailored farms, which I visited in the Salinas Valley, introduced me to different snacking lines. This had an 8% growth last year, and it's once again a very tailored product based on customers' needs and expectations. So some niche opportunities that I found very exciting. The reason I found these exciting is because traditionally vegetables compete with vegetables. Here are some examples of vegetables competing with other categories. So you've got cauliflower rice, which is competing with the cauliflower category, with the rice category. And you've got vegetable noodles competing with the noodle and pasta category. So this opens up new doors for people to not only uptake vegetables, but increase the sales of the overall categories. So research and development. So research and development was another point about gaining customer feedback. So customers which work towards innovation, introduction and improvement of products and processes are able to better value add their offerings and produce a product that meets their demands. So a good example of research and development was G's Produce, which is one of the largest global marketing-led produce companies in the world. So when I went there, they had about 10 people just focus on research and development. They were one of the first companies to launch baby boots, which were baby beats, which we're probably familiar with in Australia. So the reason they came about that, when I spoke to them, was all about the customer. So once again, it came back to the customer. They were able to increase the shelf life and for other reasons as well. So some of the products that they're working on now are different soups, potato chips, dips and juices. I also visited Campton, a research company in Campton. So they were working on a product which was also a cauliflower rice product. The interesting component of this is it had a 12-month shelf life, and it could sit shelf stable. So it meant it didn't have to be refrigerated, and it could sit right next to rice on the shelves, which it was. So once again, it opens a whole new range or new opportunities for growers, this type of product, because you can post it, becomes more relevant in e-commerce, and so it was quite an exciting product development. They're also working on different research and development about increasing shelf life, different vegetable uses and so forth. So they found a lot of people were coming to them about shelf life, and the reason being is they wanted international exposure. So it's something I believe we've got to focus on in the Australian vegetable industry, so we can get into Asia, because shelf life is going to be really important to achieving that. So food waste. So we're probably familiar in Australia with Imperfect veg. This started in the US and UK, and the reason it started was because 20% of a produce was being left in the field because it wasn't meeting specifications. So even though the product was good, high in nutrition, it just didn't look great. So they come up with this marketing campaign that ugly produce is beautiful. So I was speaking to the owner of Staples Produce, who was one of the first people to adopt this campaign, and he stated that the implications for him has been huge. It means he can now harvest pretty much majority of his stock, maybe leaving behind about 5%. And it also, beyond that, is increased his efficiencies in the field, because he no longer has to pick and sort. He will actually pick all his product and sort in the warehouse, which he can mechanise. So it's had huge implications on his business. There's also opportunities to repurpose second-grade produce with opportunities like shredding lettuce, broccoli florets, which I discussed before. So there are genuine opportunities for veggie processors to take advantage of these opportunities. So marketing. So I saw packaging being used as marketing. So QR codes were quite big in Europe, where you could use your phone to scan a QR code or bring up a website, video, and so forth. That was quite powerful. You can also give consumers different directions of how to use the product, whether it's microwavable, different recipes, because you've got the packaging to use. I also saw premium packaging. So an example of this was the Brazilian packaging, where they were doing sweet grapes, and had the actual punnet in the shape of a, like it's coming straight off the vine. And then one which I found really fascinating was around occasional packaging. So this occurred in Spain, and it was launched through the Valentine's Day period, where they'll have a little love heart around it and have love notes in the packaging. And they reckon that was quite successful, and probably something I'll copy. Yeah, so back to the broccoli. So in the past I've heard, so in the past I've heard the statement over and over again, produce and marketing doesn't work. And I somewhat agree. Poor marketing doesn't work. So what people have tried to use in the past is telling the consumer via TV or radio that you've got to increase your vegetable consumption because it's healthy for you. Now, the issue with that is most people actually are aware that vegetables are good for you. So advertising that is just creating extra cues or creating extra noise, which people just filter through. So what I found was a good marketing campaign in the States, as you see, is they just use humour to generate penetration. So it got people thinking about broccoli. So broccoli now 43% less pretentious than kale. Now that humour actually increased sales to the point where in a 3-month period they had an 80% increase in penetration of broccoli in that state. So extremely successful. So what are some of the things that I didn't expect to see? So I wasn't expecting to see such a focus on the customer. Now, I said it a few times, and I probably keep reiterating it, that customers must be the centre of all decisions. I wasn't expecting to see such large businesses being flexible and adaptable. So one of the major businesses that I went and saw launched 15 new products in that 1 year, and that's quite an achievement. I wasn't expecting to see such a range of value-added products and such a focus on different customer segments. So what have I learnt? I learnt that value-added is an exciting and full of opportunities. Success in value-add comes through understanding customers. The day of growing a product in hope of sale are very limited, and convenience options are increasing consumptions. So some of the recommendations. Producers can directly influence the growth of a product category through understanding growth potentials and creating products around them. Producers can compete with other categories, like the cauliflower rice example that I spoke to before. There's some definite opportunities to use second-grade product. And there's some the advancement in technologies open up new markets. So what's new for DSA Fresh? So the one main finding that I've taken home is to focus on the customers. So we've gone away, worked with our retail partners, direct consumers and hospitality groups to come up with new offerings based around convenience. And these are some of the products that we've developed over the past year. We're currently looking at developing about 10 more in the next 6 months. Okay, so beyond Nuffield, one of the greatest lessons I learned was around delegation. So for me, it was quite a challenging time. I went from 24 employees up to 16. And I was always told to delegate, delegate, delegate. Delegation is fantastic, but if it's not done correctly, it can have a negative impact upon your business. So I really learnt about myself, about my leadership capacity, and I've really taken away some real good lessons from Nuffield as to how to better delegate, how to keep people more accountable, and how to better set up KPIs. Thank you.